Hare Krishna. Welcome to the second session of the Bhagavad Gita class. Thank you all for joining and giving your very valuable time. To those who are not here yet, I'm speaking to them. Please come on time. So I'll probably say this again when they are here. And the second important thing is continuity. The way I'm structuring this specific course is it's highly continuous. So, just like any other science subject, if you miss a critical piece, you got to catch up through the recording, through one of various means, but otherwise it will kind of stop making sense. And another thing, I just want to get it out of the way. In all the previous batches, I used to make an effort to sort of review what we did earlier, sort of fill in the gaps, give overall context. I'm going to do less and less of that and just keep going forward. So your prior retention of the previous discussions will be extremely important. So again, still, I will try to do my best, ask questions, and that will be the best way to, for the understanding to deepen. So having said that, let us get started in all earnest. We always start with prayers so that whatever we just said, listening and understanding with depth occurs in our heart, in our minds. So I will share the screen with the prayers that we will start with. It takes 2 minutes. And just for those who are not familiar, there are some people who are very familiar with this here. There will be 2 shlokas that we will recite in the middle, which will not be shown in the prayers. I will someday create slides which will all have it all streamlined. Those 2 verses are for Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who is the commentator of this edition of Bhagavad Gita that we use. So obviously in this edition of Bhagavad Gita, he did not write his own prayer unto himself. That's not customary, but we add it because he is our guru from whom we are understanding the Bhagavad Gita. So you will find 2 verses missing. Don't get confused as to have I switched to some other book. But after those 2 verses, we will, these prayers continue. So I am assuming all of you have the Bhagavad Gita in your hands. If you don't, then please get it on smartphone, on your device, paper copy, whatever it is, print out. The website is vedabase.com. Like you have database.com, you have similarly Vedabase or database. This, I don't know what is database.com. So VEDABASE. Last time I had mentioned this website. Maybe somebody can put it on the chat to everyone. So here we go. So that's the website, vedabase.com. It redirects to vedabase.io. Bhagavad Gita, and we will go to the introduction. And these are the prayers. So those who can on the Zoom, please stay muted. And in the room, please feel free to recite along. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Now those 2 prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Now we resume from here. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so we will, I have some slides which we will use to guide our discussion. So I will switch to slides. Okay. I hope you can see the slides. 1 second. Okay. So this is a key concepts course, as we have said. It's going to be fast paced. There are 2 other versions on YouTube. You can go through them at your heart's content and follow through with the book as well. The focus of this course, please. So once again, everybody on Zoom, please don't multitask. Don't do other things. And everybody here, that's the benefit of in-person. Just focus rapidly on the class. I have put a lot of effort into making this material very sort of, for you to be able to get it. So Bhagavad Gita is to be gotten. Next comes memorizing the verses, going deeper into each verse. So many things are there that can be done. Bhagavad Gita can be, you can have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita for the rest of your life, and still you will feel I'm not an expert enough. But there are far too many people I have met who have done a very deep study of Bhagavad Gita, but even they say, I'm nobody to judge. Even they say, I don't get it. Or when asked some questions, then there is some struggle. So the most important thing is to get it. And there is so much to get, agree. It's not a handful of things. It's the manual of life, like we discussed last time. Just a simple Honda manual was that big. So this is the manual for life. The key concepts, the most important things, please try to get it. Focus on getting it. Bhagavad Gita, if you get it, I'm telling you, it will be a life-altering experience. And that's why in this series, we are going to follow a minimalist approach. I have always been, whenever I was making these slides and all that, I was like, I should add this, I should add that, I should add this, I should add that. My focus has been on cut it down, cut it down, cut it down. Remove everything other than those essential concepts. Less is more has been my sort of focus in this session. So focus on getting it. Okay, and ask questions. There will be a lot of questions. Please pay careful attention in the domain of what about this? What about that? In previous series, I used to make an attempt to answer those right away. It's rude to not answer and this and that. But I will make an effort myself. I'm telling myself to postpone such questions for later. Because you need to have the Bhagavad Gita understanding. That's why you are in this course. If you want to get all your answers on day 1, then what's the point of doing the course? So first, make an attempt to understand what is in the Bhagavad Gita, ask questions that are very relevant to today's or the topics that have been covered so far. But trust me, Bhagavad Gita is the manual for entire life, not half of the life. So it will cover all the things. And just that's why I said continuity for those who came later, and be there till the end, don't miss. So continuity and completeness. Complete it with continuity. Another point, extremely important. Do not treat this. Again, these are just 2 slides on orientation sort of level. Do not treat it as again, depends. You can treat it however you want. It's up to you. Do not treat it, my request is, as a casual pursuit. It is not just about tweaking your present life. Okay, my life is going, more or less okay. I just want to make it better. There are too many self-help programs out there. You can join any of those. They will make your life a little bit better, a whole lot better. So many things. That is not the purpose. To make it little more enjoyable, little more efficient, or any of those things, more of X, Y, Z, fill in the blank. It's none of those things. It is about finding the purpose of your life. The questions that Bhagavad Gita is answering and the questions you should be here for are way more profound than just improving your life by some percentage. It is not, this is a very powerful sentence I got from somewhere. It's not a casual pursuit of social cosmetics in our material life. It's not a casual pursuit of social cosmetics. I have a house, I have a car, I have a good family, my kids go to good school. I have also read Bhagavad Gita, I have a guru, I have temple in my house. I can have a meaningful discussion on Bhagavad Gita over dinner. You see the point? It's not, don't put Bhagavad Gita in that same category. I have a, car, I have a house, I have Bhagavad Gita, I have a guru. Then you will get only that much benefit. It is way more profound than extension of that previous list. I have a car, I have a house list. So with that, let's dive into, last time I want to sort of circle back to chapter 1 for a little bit, though we covered it last time. And I expect you to have gone back and read it, at least the translations, the ones in bold font. Attachments. You see this word, anything that is, I have used this sort of design for all the slides, anything in the circle is important. This is a central point of chapter 1. In last week's class, we discussed what is the problem statement? What is Bhagavad Gita the solution to? We must define the problem. And it's very relevant for chapter 2, which is our focus today. And by the way, chapter 2, we will cover in 2 weeks. It is the second longest chapter of the whole Bhagavad Gita. So ideally, we will be covering 1 chapter a week, Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 2, we will split into 2 weeks. So my goal is to not finish chapter 2 today. So attachments. So last time we discussed Arjuna's attachments. And there are many, but we have distilled down into 4 with those verse numbers, 1.31. He doesn't want to kill his kinsmen, okay, his family members, his cousins. Sin will come by killing anyone, not just family members, anyone. So many warriors and people will die. Families will be destroyed. Dynasties will be destroyed. Family traditions will be destroyed. If all the men disappear, what will happen? It will be just a bunch of broken families. And enjoying the kingdom or enjoying any kind of happiness on the blood of kinsmen or on the blood of anyone, basically the point being enjoying something upon someone else's suffering. We all do that, isn't it? Or we have seen others do. We never do it. Only others do it. So enjoy on someone else's suffering. Now, some of these may sound very similar to each other or overlapping. It will become clear. Okay. So since we flew by chapter 1 very quickly last week, and some of the people gave that feedback, we'll take it a little bit slowly to understand. So these 4 verses, remember, 1.31, 36, 39, and 44. We'll dive into some verses. So 1.31. So we'll not go through the full verses. So in such verse slides, you can open in your book as well and follow on the screen as well if you would like. So 1.31 is about, I don't want to kill my kinsmen. Kinsmen, the English word here is kinsmen, but the Sanskrit word, and for many of you, 99% of the people here are of Indian origin. There are many Indian languages derived from Sanskrit. So I will hit upon some of the Sanskrit words as well. Sva-jana. So here in the slides, you can see this sva-janam. Sva-jana means what? My people. So, nacha shreyo anupashyami hatva svajanam ahave. So, hatva means hatya. The root word is hat, means to kill. So, nacha shreyo anupashyami. Shreya, what shreya I will get? What good will come out of it? Anupashyami means I don't see any good coming out of hatva svajanam, of killing my own people. How can I do that? Do you see that? So, like I said, the focus is on attachments, and there'll be a small exercise in the middle. So please focus, please very clearly try to see. These are Arjuna's words. Okay, he's speaking. Imagine yourself on the battlefield, and he is speaking actually these words. Even though this happened 5,000 years ago, it still happened. And he's saying this. Try to put yourself in his posture, in his sort of enter into his mind and heart, and try to understand what he is going through. He's about to kill his own people. And this, so what is the attachment there? And that is what is there in these blue boxes at the bottom. So attachment to his sva-janas, isn't it? Can any of you think of killing your own people? It may, after seeing all these movies and playing all these shooting video games, it feels like it's very easy to kill. All you have to do is point and shoot the trigger. The people who come back from war, they suffer from PTSD. They are killing, so to say, enemy, not even their own people. Why is there so much PTSD? They say that it's not easy to live, to sleep with the fact that you have killed someone. In movies, it is very easy to say, oh, you know. So attachment to sva-janas. Second one, avoiding sin. Papam eva ashraye tasman hatva etan atatayinaha. So papam eva ashraye tasman. That sin will come, papa will come to me. I will accumulate, I will accrue papa. So what is the attachment? To punya, to doing good things. And a very clear definition is, do something to others what you would like them to do to you. Everything that is all punya, a very crude definition. Everything else is papa. Or whatever you would not like to be done to yourself, if they do to you, you should not do to them. Family dynasties will be destroyed. Kula kshaye pranashyanti kula dharmaha sanatanaha. Kula dharma means the family traditions. Imagine, you know, the man of the house just disappearing, and not just of one house. Then the neighborhood, the village, the town can support. But imagine that we haven't seen that situation in history, maybe in the World War or something like that. These are very, very grave concerns. So attachment to preservation, he's a kshatriya. He's not just some ordinary person on the street. He is the son of Pandu. If everything goes rightfully, his elder brother Yudhishthir will become king, and he is like the right-hand man of the king. The king sits in the court. He is the one who has to go out and enforce justice. It's his duty. It's in his blood. He's a kshatriya. And he is the one who is going to have to destroy family tradition. And finally, enjoying kingdom on the blood of his kinsmen, or by cheating or by oppressing others. That's how this is different from killing the kinsmen. There seems to be an overlap, but here it is about oppressing others and then enjoying on top of their suffering. That is the sentiment. So attachment to enjoying. So here it says, Yad Rajya Sukha Lobhena Hantu Svajana Uddayataha. So Raja Sukha Lobhena, people will think I have a lobha, a greed for enjoying Raja Sukha. By killing people, enjoying on others' suffering. So attachment to enjoying by the rightful means, not by greed, not by oppression. Okay, so these are his attachments. Now comes the big question. Fine, these are Arjuna's attachment. You can watch a serial, Mahabharata serial, and then you can, eat popcorn along with it and not think about it. But this is not Mahabharata serial. So you have to think. So please take 1 or 2 minutes and think, what are your attachments? Not the petty ones. Oh, I'm attached to my iPhone. That may be a big attachment these days, but somebody was telling these days, upavas, fasting should not be from food. Fasting should be, keep your iPhone away for 1 day. You can eat whatever you want, but don't use your smart. That's a new modern day 21st century upavas. Anyway, so not the petty ones, like, oh, I will give up samosa. The big ones, the troubling ones. And the last one is most important, the last bullet, the ones that bring suffering. Now, if luckily some of you have not undergone any suffering, then it may be hard to do this exercise. You can at least see other people's suffering, but it's not easy to put yourself. Yes, there is so much suffering in Ukraine. There is suffering in Afghanistan. There is suffering everywhere. Suffering is everywhere. Only what the news media tells us is not the suffering. Okay. So, but it's still not easy to put ourselves in their shoes. But try to best put yourself in your shoes if you have seen it in your own life. Take 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and think. How many of you are able to see 1 or 2 things? I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to point to you, but you are able to see 1 or 2 things. That much all I'm asking you. Rest are not seeing anything. Then raise your hand. Feedback, please. I want to know what's going on. Okay. On Zoom also, people are raising hands. That's nice. How many of you are finding it? Let me ask the other question. Okay, you can all lower your hands. Thank you. And I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. If you raise your hand, okay, can you please share? It may be something very personal, very private. If you want, I will ask from time to time. If you would like to share, then raise your hand. Okay, I'll be very specific about what I will ask about raising the hands or whatever. How many of you are finding it difficult to see anything or are not seeing anything significant other than, oh, I'm attached to my jacket or my particular car or gulab jamun or samosa? Beyond that, how many of you are not able to see much? And that's okay. That's totally okay. You're very lucky.
So that last point, the ones that bring suffering might be little bit.
If taken away, that was the point.
Okay.
If taken away or something like that. Or the thought of being taken away. Everybody, I don't see any hands on Zoom, which means everybody is seeing something. Very good. So that
Prabhuji, Pranam. Actually, suffering, when we say, when I look back, a lot of suffering was there in the life, but then I'm part of other batch of Bhagavad Gita, and after going through it, I am realizing those are not at all suffering. Those were the conditions when I could manage myself. It was just my thing, maybe some karma or something. But if I compare with respect to Arjuna, that was not at all suffering.
Okay, very nice. But you're already making progress. So good. This was to those who are fresh. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Prabhuji.
What was I saying? Yeah. So this is the journey of a seeker. Sadhak, we say. Sadhak or a seeker. Trying to inquire, trying to stop in your life, take a pause and think, where am I going? What's going on in my life? Like a doctor, we go to a doctor. So you take a pause, you take a break from work. You just don't keep running. If you have a problem, you go take help. So take a pause and inquire. That's the journey. Unfortunately, there are very few spiritual doctors. You'll find a lot of bodily doctors. So that is the journey of a seeker. So would anybody like to just share one or two things that they saw, something major? On Zoom, you are welcome to raise your hand.
I want to say something, but I'm not sure if I can share lots of details.
Yeah, don't share personal details.
Yeah, but my question is, it's around that the one which brings suffering, if it's taken away, but what if you have attachment to the suffering which you have gone through? And
Attachment to the suffering or attachment to something that caused suffering?
Yeah, something or someone which caused suffering, right? Is trying to think about karma and just being that average human being where you are constantly thinking that, why me? Or, trying to think about karma, that when would karma would get back to them, right? And trying to break apart from who or whatever caused you suffering, that kind of attachment.
So that's exactly the next slide. Why me? So we will go deeper into this question. Okay. So good question. Why am I suffering? This will give us an answer into our attachments. Suffering is something that people can identify. Some suffering, either now or in the past. Maybe you have gotten over it, but is there a guarantee that it will not come again? It could come again also, or you may be going through some suffering. And the questions are, why am I suffering? Why me? And even if there is no sort of suffering, but potential suffering, like Arjuna, It's a potential suffering. It's like stuck between a rock and a hard place. What do you say? Aage kuan piche khai, or something like that. Either I will have to live with the humiliation done to Draupadi and so many other things if I don't fight, or I will have to live with killing my near and dear ones. So potential suffer, the thought itself is suffering. In many people's case, okay, whether to go back to India, to stay here, taking care of parents, it's a big one, what should I do, this, that, so many things are there. Impossible choices. And fundamentally looking for answers for something that may be happening. Why? The center of it is, why me? Why is this happening to me? Looking for some answers so that you have some access to do something about it. That is the whole point, to be able to do something about it, to get some control of the situation. It's just, you can't even figure out what to hold so that you can begin to pull. So hopefully you have gone through that exercise of what are your attachments. We will uncover more of that in the second chapter. I just want to end this chapter's discussion with a quote. Some of you may find it familiar. If you do, then let me know. Raise your hand. Very, very famous. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Where have you heard that? And doesn't matter where you have heard. Very powerful. Anybody? Is reminded of something? Anyway. Nobody? So looks like you're not in the Star Wars folklore sort of thing. Very famous line by Yoda, which he tells to Luke Skywalker in the third episode, when he is faced with an impossible choice, whether to go to the dark side and try to save his wife Padme, or to stay with the Force, with Yoda, and not give in to the temptation of going into the dark side. And if you haven't seen Star Wars, then some of this terminology may not make sense, but still the quote, and this is what Yoda tells Luke. And this is, and it is a well-known fact that George Lucas, who is the producer of the original 6 movies, was heavily influenced by the Bhagavad Gita. So he says, train yourself, Yoda tells Luke, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Fear is the path to the dark side. So here he's picking on fear. It's not generalized, because in that particular situation, Luke was fearing the impending death of his wife. Mother? Yes, that was his recollection. She had already died by then. Or, yeah. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. And here's the point. Hate leads to suffering. So, training oneself to let go of everything that you fear to lose is our, what is that? Another name for that. Are you guys paying attention?
Suffering.
Everything that you fear to lose is what?
Attachment.
Attachment.
Yeah.
And lead to suffering. So that is the main point. Our attachments lead to suffering. So with that, we will start with the second chapter discussion. And the point is to find out, the exercise that was given was to identify your attachments, isn't it? We will go through, and now it's easy, or I would say it's impossible to find out what your attachments are, but we will go through another exercise, another series of steps, not steps, but inquiry to find out what our attachments are. And with that, we will start with chapter 2 discussion. So we will go through concepts, and whatever uncovers for you, take that away. Take it with you. Everything, everybody may discover or uncover to a certain extent, No, you're not like the popcorn analogy. Each discussion is a popcorn packet. So, everybody will pop at their own time. Don't worry. The most important point of the popcorn analogy is what? Well, fine. No, not that you will pop. After in the bag of popcorn, there are last few things that don't pop.
Staying in the microwave.
Exactly. Don't turn off the microwave. Not till it burns for the regulated 3 minutes. So we will have our 18 chapters. We won't keep going. But through that time, don't take the bag out. Okay. So step 1, we'll go through 2 steps today. Step 1 is to identify the main suffering. And we will convert this word suffering very soon into attachment, or the cause of suffering. Remember this, attachment is the cause of suffering. This is Bhagavad Gita's one of the key messages. From attachments comes suffering. Yes, sometimes pleasures also come. But if everybody is very happy, then you're done. No need to attend any more Bhagavad Gita. You're already happy, at least in this life. If you care about next life, then stay. If you are convinced that this life is it, and I am the happiest person in the world, thank you very much. Please go and share your happiness with others. In all other cases, stay. So, attachments are the cause of suffering. And so we will deal with suffering, and there can be multiple sufferings, but usually there is 1 or 2 root or main sufferings. Okay. A very good analogy of this is, have you ever had a splinter in your hand? If you're working with wood or something, and if you don't deal with it, the whole area gets swollen, very painful. If you touch anywhere close to it, it hurts really badly, isn't it? Have you experienced that?
Yes.
You cannot even touch like 1 inch. There's a whole big circle where you cannot touch, isn't it? So what do? Do you do the surgery of that whole big thing? You just take it out? What is the root cause of that suffering? How big is that? And the moment you take it out, what happens? Everything is good, right? So it's just an analogy, but most of the times, that is the thing. That there is something which is the primary cause. The primary suffering is usually, that's why I have used the word usually, much narrower than the perceived or the inflated size. You may go to the doctor and say, this whole big thing is there. He will say, no, the big thing is just the result. What I'm going to treat is that little splinter. I will take it out. You'll be fine. For Arjuna, it comes down to 2 things. We said so many things in chapter 1. It just comes down to 2 things, or rather 1 thing, which is 2 people. His extreme love for Bhishma and Drona. Okay, so you should look at your life. I will come to that very soon. You should look at your life and see what is at the root of your suffering. And I'll mention this in one of the future slides. Sometimes because that suffering is there, everything else looks like tasteless, or you're like what do you say in English? Chidchida person, irritable person in every area of your life, isn't it? If that one thing gets resolved, then all areas of life, then suddenly say, hey, what happened to you? You're looking so, happy. Yeah, my, whatever, mom had a big surgery upcoming. The surgery was successful. Great. All areas become, your face lights up. So it comes down to, so sometimes it may look like, oh, why am I suffering in my workplace is so, demanding, so this, that, but it may be something else. So it's very personal. You have to identify that. So for Arjuna, it comes down to just two things. Katham Bhishmam Aham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana. Just Bhishma and Drona. Simply the thought of possibly, he doesn't know yet. Of course, he knows Krishna is with me. So I will, there cannot be defeat wherever Krishna is. He knows that. He already had that conversation with Lord Krishna. If you remember this little bit, rewind into the story of Mahabharata. Both Duryodhan and Arjun went to Krishna, and Krishna said, one of you will get all my army, which is like, I think 9 Akshauhinis or something like huge. And one will get just me, and I will not even fight. Arjuna said, I just want you. What's the point of having your army without you? That is the Raavan mentality. Wanting Sita without Ram. You want Sita is Lakshmi. So we all want Lakshmi, but we don't want Narayana. So he said that is the Raavan mentality. I want the power and the property of Bhagawan, but I don't want Bhagawan. If Bhagawan is there, then everything is there. So he says, I want you. So he was absolutely sure of his victory. That thought of possibly, again, still I have added possibly, even though for him it was a surety. Somehow or the other, they have to vanquish, because Bhishma is right now the leader of the army. The thought of killing them was just unbearable. As I told, I think last time, I'm going through Mahabharata slowly. During the upbringing of Arjuna and the whole thing, you should see the bonding between Bhishma and Arjuna, and between Drona and Arjuna. Drona loved Arjuna more than his own son Ashwatthama. It's hard to explain in words for me, but I'm just sharing with you this bonding is very, very strong, and the thought of killing them. So that is what Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, Madhusudana, O killer of Madhu. He's addressing Krishna. How can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? That is the root point, the main point for him. So this is the process of identification of attachments. Like I said, start with suffering, where you are suffering. From there, try to find out what you are attached to, which is basically, then it will give you the suffering, your attachment. Okay. So again, I will pause and see if there is somebody, 1 or 2 people who would like to share. Anybody brave enough? I'm not cajoling anyone. Okay, let me ask it differently. How many of you see something? I'm not going to call on you. Please do raise your hand if you see something very significant.
Something significant about
As your attachment, that you're very attached to. Okay, almost everybody in the room is raising their hands. Okay, great. So it must be something significant that you're not willing to share. That's good.
On chat, some people have put a few things.
Okay, on chat, people have put some things. Okay, I will keep moving. Thank you for putting on the chat. Anyway, so thank you. You can lower your hands. Thank you so much for your participation. And like I said, here is that blue box, which says sometimes the suffering is due to some hidden or some other attachments. It just appears that I'm suffering in one area. Now we are entering into chapter 2, or the topic of chapter 2. Please be ready. Fasten your seatbelts, sit back and relax and enjoy the ride. Bhagavad Gita, many people say, starts now. Now comes Bhagavad Gita. All this was also is discussed usually in some self-help classes, some these things. Now comes the main topic. And this is what I was saying yesterday. We do classes every day of the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, identity. So, from your suffering, identify your attachments. And more importantly, at the root of it is who you think you are, your identity. I am this. So going in the reverse, identity, who you think you are, gives you your attachments. And in many scenarios, when your attachments are threatened, that gives suffering. And because you're so strongly attached, even a slight what will we say? Tinkering will give immense pain. So it all starts with our identity. So just to kind of give you an example, Bhagavad Gita is an example. Arjuna is, if we can learn from Arjuna's life, what are his identities? What does he identify with? Who does he identify with? He identifies with all these things that I have listed. First of all, Bhishma. I am a good and loving grandson. That's putting it mildly. I am a very, very, I'm the best grandson ever. Okay. I am the perfect disciple, the most dedicated disciple of my teacher, Drona. He is the best teacher. Before Drona came, there was Kripacharya, who was the teacher of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. He kind of maxed out because he's not that expert. And these boys were showing so much talent that he said, I have to get a, like we say, external private tutor. The current tutor has maxed out. So he went around and searched for, he knew Drona is the person, but couldn't find Drona. There's that whole story where somebody, a ball falls into the well. And then Drona takes blades of grass and then just, shoots them. And then, each blade of grass hits on the top of the other, and he's then able to pull out the ball. And then somebody comes and tells Kripacharya, this is what happened. He said, who is that person? Get him to me right now. There's only one person in the whole world who can do that, which is Drona. Yeah, I have been looking for him because he is your perfect teacher. So he then he had Dhritarashtra hire Drona for teaching the Pandavas. You following? And Arjuna became the best disciple. And Drona also found the perfect. I teach other things, I teach my kids, I teach a lot of things. Every teacher, I can tell you, is looking for the perfect student. The teacher is not looking for money. The teacher is looking for a serious, sincere student. That is the best remuneration for a teacher. And Drona found that in Arjuna, and Arjuna found that in Drona. Then being a family man, compassionate, pious, we discussed all this, protector of kula dharma and all that. So these are his identities. Can you see? He identifies, I am. All these sentences start with I am, not this is my attachment. I am this. That gives rise to attachments. Okay. Now, just to kind of give some more concepts, one can have multiple identities. Like Arjuna, I have a long list. It's not just one. Here we can also say I probably should have written down, I'm a dedicated husband. So much insult happened to my wife. How can I be called a good husband without protecting my wife or putting them to justice? So one can have multiple identities based on time, place, and circumstance, and so on.
But whatever the Arjuna has, those are good attachments, right?
Yes. So the question in the room is, they are good attachments. You're very right. Those are the hard ones. Yes, there are bad attachments. Again, as I said, minimalist approach. In the detailed version, we would have talked about Duryodhana's attachments. So yes, there are both type of attachments, but you're all good people here, right? So we have our attachments. Nobody is attached to being an oppressor. So that's the easy one, okay? And attachments can change or evolve over time. As we said, you can have multiple attachments. When you're with your wife, I mean, you're a husband, you're a son, you're a grandson, you're a good employee, you're a good student, you're a good teacher. And also it can evolve. Sometimes, you think you're a very, very loving father. But when the child retaliates, he kind of, doesn't care for you, or even worse, does something really bad, like when siblings fight or one oppresses the other, then that, one realizes maybe that what was all this, my love for my child all about? All this is temporary or meaningless. So it's not that it's just changing based on the time, place, and circumstance, but a given attachment could also evolve or change. Are you following? So that is, how can identity evolve? By our experiences. You experience something and then you realize, oh, I was attached to this, I was identifying as this, but actually it's not so. I was a fool, or whatever. Or you may realize, oh my God, I thought this person was just some, but he's such a good friend. I never realized that. Could evolve. Or by knowledge. And I have a very nice story about that, which we'll come to later in the class. By knowledge, our identity evolves. If somebody comes and tells you a way to think by logic or by presenting certain facts, by showing things that you have not seen, or they were right in front of your eyes, but you're like, our sense of normal blinds us. We take a step back, think, say, oh my God, what I was taking something for granted, that this is it, this is how it is, has been, it's not so. So when someone comes and shows, or by some means, by some knowledge, are you all following? So now comes this one we will spend little more time on. And I really would like you to think, the best thing is if you all come with a pen and paper or something to, write down. And for those of you in the room, don't keep the Bhagavad Gita on the floor. Keep it on something. Okay. When I say floor, I mean something that is immovable, that is glued to the fixed structure of the house. Okay. Put a paper and then put it. That makes a movable separation between the fixed structure and the book. Okay. So that's how we will define floor. Anything that is attached to the fixed structure, which includes the carpet. So here comes the next big question. What is your identity? Really, please think about it. What is your identity? The one or two maybe big things that you identify with the most. And here I am giving you a big clue. If I told you, think of somebody who you are. If I told you the opposite, no, you are not a good enough son. You say you are a good son? No, you're not. I saw you doing that. You're not a good son. You would get massively triggered. What the heck do you mean? What do you mean? Don't you know what I have done? You will go on a, you will just recoil. So fill in the blank. This actually happened. One person was a very good person. I tell this story. One of the book distributors, he went into a store and distributing the book to a storekeeper. Okay, you can distribute a Bhagavad Gita to anybody. So book distributor means a Bhagavad Gita book distributor. Went into a store, that storekeeper, I don't know what that store was, some candy store or whatever, and he had a whole wall of all the good things he had done. So the moment every customer that would come in, he would say, or somehow in the conversation, oh yeah, I helped this person there, this person, and he was photographs of all these things. So the book distribution person said that, okay, with the Bhagavad Gita, you can, learn how to help people better. Somehow or the other, that whole thing about challenging that maybe there is something that you can learn how to be a better good person triggered him. He said, what do you think? You will teach me how to be a good person? What have you done? Have you done even 1/100th of what I have? Something went on, completely got triggered with that. This person was just suggesting, or maybe he was just using some ploy to, give him Bhagavad Gita, whatever. I don't know. But if he's such a good person, then, you hit the nerve. Somehow he happened to touch the sensitive nerve when he got triggered. That is what I'm asking about. You think you are dash something, and somebody challenges, even in a subtle way. Do you know what I have done? What the heck do you mean? Kind of response. So please take 2 minutes. Think, who do you identify with? Really, please take a moment and think. Then this is the part of getting the Bhagavad Gita.
At the same time, I think it may not be that easy and straightforward. Is that right?
If you think the question is, it may not be that easy. Yes, it is not easy, but with contemplation, work on yourself. Okay. Nothing is easy. Even cooking is not easy.
Maybe identify who you are, and identify the achievement of the actions that you do as a person.
Actually, it's both easy and difficult. It's easy to.
So like this on the slide I'm sharing, fill in your blank. I am a good, a good daughter.
Good father.
A good father, and a little bit more specific in your mind, a good daughter as in good daughter to my mother. Sometimes, I have 2 kids. I'm fine with saying this on Zoom. If my wife or me want some help, there is one of them that, little bit runs faster as a response. So, maybe there's that identity in him that I am the, more helpful one or whatever. The other one is also very helpful, but it's the identity part. Maybe, I don't know. My wife is sitting in the back and shaking her head for revealing family secrets.
Depending on the type of request, right? So like,
Think before you. Anyway. Did you get it? How many of you are seeing something? Imagine yourself, somebody challenging you, and you don't even have to imagine, somebody might have challenged you. And you were thinking in your mind, like, if I could, I would give a piece of my mind to this person right now, right here. He has no idea what I am going through to be that person, what all I am going through to be that person, and still it's not enough. That kind of conversation. That's your identity. Not your identity, but I would say that's who you identify as. It is not your identity. Okay, don't go make a tattoo of that and put it on your head. It's not irreplaceable or it's not irreversible. It's who you identify as. You following? Okay, shall we move on? Okay. Any questions at this point before we move forward? So all of you, you can lower your hand unless you have a question, because I don't know your hands are raised because of the poll I did or because of a question. If you have a question, keep your hand up or raise your hand on Zoom. And first we'll go in the room and then we will go to Zoom. Yes, Prabhu. What's your name?
Prabhu.
Your name is Prabhu? Very nice.
So just a quick question, because we talked about suffering and connected to attachments, connected to identity. It feels like, I've thought about it and found some things, but I'm just wondering what's the easiest way, or is there a right way, I guess, to go to finding what your identity is? Because a little bit I had to think about, like, the things that have caused suffering or things that I feel I'm attached to, and then had to work my way to identity. But sometimes if you just think for an identity, you might have other things that you start with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, like,
that's not the only. So I hope the question was heard on the Zoom. I have this $100 $200 microphone. They say it's the best one, Yeti, whatever, and it is on this sort of omni setting. So did you hear what was said in the room?
Yes.
Okay, nice. So I don't have to repeat. So it's supposed to catch everything in the room. So anyway. So yes, there could be identities which you are not aware of. And when you are faced with that situation, then those come up. Very possible. Okay. But I showed you this slide that I showed is one way to identify your identity. Okay. But this will not, or this is not guaranteed to uncover every possible identity that you identify with. Okay. But at least it helps you. Ultimately, what do we want? We want to get rid of our suffering, isn't it? So, okay, if there is, if you have identified a disease, go treat that disease. Maybe there is something brewing inside which is not giving you external symptoms. Okay, if they find it in a scan, great, they can go treat it. But at least we'll work on things that are bothering you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yes, you are absolutely right. There could be more. Any other questions? Is there a question in the Zoom? NS 2020, is there a question?
I have one.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Bhagawan has given this birth, and as a devotee, I want to identity, and Bhagavan knows me, and for something he created me that has to be finished in this Janma. My sense, that is the point, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you for sharing, but we are not there yet. We haven't talked about God at all. So yes, you are way ahead. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll go back into the room. Your name, please.
Question on my mind. My name is Yatin. So question I had was, if the idea is suffering is caused by attachments, and attachments come from identity, you have to get rid of attachments and then identity.
I didn't say you have to get rid of the identity.
No,
I didn't say that yet.
Okay, then I think I don't have a question.
Okay.
Question I still had just to say.
Yeah, you have to get rid of our suffering
Okay.
and attachments, or at least know the source, what to do with those attachments. We didn't fully discuss. Okay. Yoda did say, get rid of your attachments. Let go. Let go means get rid or leave of everything you fear to lose. Okay. I didn't say that, but, or at least that was just a side topic. Okay. And again, that topic about what to do with your attachments will be covered in more detail. The Bhagavad Gita really, to be honest with you, begins to unfold in the middle 6 chapters. 18 chapters are there. And please listen to this carefully if you have fallen asleep. Bhagavad Gita is building up. Not everything is going to be answered in the beginning. Like I said in the beginning of today's session, stay in the microwave. Please stay in the microwave. Do not go out. Okay? It will build up gradually and it will provide you the answers. There are some very profound topics coming up in the future weeks. Okay? This is not about just solving material problems, attachments. Okay, letting go of attachments. I love my family. I love my mom. I love this. I love that. Okay, Suresh Prabhu on the Zoom.
Yeah, namaste, Hari Om. I had a question about the suffering and perceived suffering. I think you mentioned a little bit about Arjuna was having perceived suffering, right? And then similarly,
no, there was real suffering, I said, on the thought of a potential real suffering where, again, suffering is in the mind. In the Bhagavad Gita, we will differentiate between pain and suffering. So suffering in the present could be because of a future pain. Anyway, go ahead and complete your question.
Yeah, no. So similarly, we sometimes have a perceived identity, right? Where maybe I might think that I'm an excellent cook, but maybe that's my identity, but maybe my wife thinks that I'm not such a great cook, right? So how is that kind of distinction between kind of identity and what? Because identity is what
identity is what you perceive yourself as.
Right.
That may be a very, small example, and you're willing to live with others challenging it. Okay. But there are stronger things that you may have in your life which you are unwilling to be challenged about. Those are your stronger identities. This one is probably a more negotiable identity. It's okay if I'm not a good cook. That's okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Inessa?
I have a question. Could you help me to make a line between suffering and identity? For example, my attachment is to be good in everything. For example, like I'm a good student and I have to do everything excellent. And I have fear to make a mistake. And if I do a mistake, I'm suffering. What is my identity?
You just said, I think, that you're to be an excellent student.
Yeah, self-concept.
If somebody who knows you says that, oh, you think you're a good student, but I never see you studying, you just keep wasting time. You say you're a good student, you cannot even understand the first line, may say some provocative things.
Mhm.
Which kind of provocative things that are said to you hurt you the most? Whatever it is, I don't know about your life, but just think about it.
It's my fear.
Where do you give in? Where do you give in to provocation the most? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes.
So I was just going to suggest what helped me was thinking also the opposite. If sometimes you feel like when you're praised about some specific characteristic,
Very
you
nice.
feel very like,
That's the very nice point he's making in the class. On the contrary, if somebody gives a little bit praise to something and you feel really good about it, the flip side of things, very nice point. That one, I'm not a good cook by any means. So even if I cook something, I didn't cook with a lot of heart into it. And if somebody says, yeah, it is a very nice dish, I'm like, okay, fine,
That's good.
good enough for me. Or like, today it was nice, I'm sure tomorrow it will be so-so. But when I put my heart, or when I think I'm really good at this and I create something, and then somebody says, that this is really good, I feel like, yes, my, life is made. Okay. So now we will go into the next step. So we discussed, just to quickly review, in the second chapter, we discussed the main suffering. Oh, yes, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so is identity, like, let's say somebody's like troubling you, and then your response after that, is that your identity?
The response is not the identity, but the identity gives the response. So from that response that comes out, or the gravity with which, the force with which the response comes out, is your identity speaking.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. And why I'm, you might wonder why, okay, my response I get attachments. Why are we into this identity business? Why do we have to go back one layer, like it is shown where? Here. It's okay to just stay with suffering and attachments. Why do I have to go back to this identity business? It will become clear in just a second. That is the whole point of chapter 2. So that's why I am bringing in this topic of identity. Okay. Next step, we will move forward. So we covered till 2.4. Please read the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So please try to imagine yourself once again in Arjun's shoes. He is being faced with this impossible choice. Okay. For all of us, how many of you have had some very, very near and dear one, either with some terminal disease or, something where you wish you could do something to save them? And maybe you could or you couldn't. But that suffering that you went through, could you raise your hands? Okay, at least half the people in the room are raising their hands, some on the Zoom as well. This one is the contrary situation. That person is perfectly alive and well, whom you love, and you're being asked to kill him. This is like orders of magnitude more. Can you imagine? I mean, we are not faced with these situations in our life at all. If that was so much, this one, how problematic is this? So you can imagine, even in those situations, my wife went through this kind of a situation with her mom, who was suffering with cancer, and she's no more. She passed away. So with her, I went through it. My father also, had medical issues, and all solutions fail us. We are trying to grapple something to hold on to pull, but nothing works. Try to imagine yourself, try to get it. You feel helpless, completely helpless. And that was Arjuna's situation. When no other answer remains, no other answer, you have to basically, as they say, Bhagwan ka naam lo, and just take God's name and pick one, or flip a coin and just take one choice. Just do something, whatever. Only then, and I am again saying here the word most people, not all, most people turn to the spiritual quest. And that is what Arjuna did. And this takes us to verse number 2.7. An extremely, extremely important verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Very, very important verse. This shows the mood of Arjuna. So we will read this verse. Karpanya dosha upahata subhavaha. Kindly keep yourself muted. Prichhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. Yat shreyasyan nishchitam bruhitan me. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapanna. Let me explain you what this is saying. Now imagine who the heck is saying these words. It's not some person on the street. Sorry for my emphasis. Arjuna is saying these words. He can win over the whole world. He has defeated Indra and Shiva. He could not defeat Shiva. I'm sorry, I take that back. But he came almost close, where then Lord Shiva said, "You are the worthy opponent." And he gave him his weapons, the Pashupatastra. When Lord Shiva came as dressed as a forest, tribal
Hunter.
Or a tribal person, when they both shot an arrow on a wild animal at the same time, and then they had a battle on, who should claim the prize. So this is that person we are talking about, and he's saying karpanya dosha means that I'm miserable. It's like a person who is extremely accomplished, but at the true moment he's just feeling helpless. I read this biography of Steve Jobs. Very accomplished person. If today he were alive, he would be the creator of the world's largest company by whatever, Apple is the biggest company, and it was pretty much Steve Jobs single-handedly, created it. And we all know how he died because of cancer and all. And then in his book, it is written like, I wish I could, do something about my disease. So that helplessness, that utter helplessness, Arjuna is expressing that. Please try to imagine Arjuna is expressing that helplessness. And then he is saying, Sammudha cheta, I am completely confused what to do. I have no idea what to do. No idea what to do. This is the situation. And then he's saying, please tell me. Nishchitam bruhitan me. You can tell me nishchitam. Definitely you can tell me the path forward, the next step, the one next step. You can only take one next step, right? You cannot take two next steps, isn't it? And for him, it is one thing, whether to fight or to quit. The conch shells have been blown. And three things he says in the red line. And that's the most important part. Shishyaste aham. Shishyaste aham means now I am your disciple. I am your shishya. So he's formally accepting Krishna as the, what is the shishya opposite is? Guru. Guru shishya.
Guru.
Relationship is there. So he's accepting Krishna as Guru. Shadhimam. Please instruct me. Shadhi Mam is different from telling, means instruct, means I'm going to treat whatever you say as like a prescription. Like, not as a suggestion, not as an optional. It is like, just tell me and I will do it. I am just confused. I don't want you to do an analysis for me, give me options. Just tell me, isn't it? That's when you're so miserable. You just tell me what to do if you have found the right guru. And the most important is the last one, Tvam Prapannam. I take your shelter. This Prapannam or Prapadya is a very important word which will come throughout the Bhagavad Gita, which means I'm taking your shelter, which means I am putting my life in your hands. Putting my life in your hands. You can you imagine the desperation here? And why is it a spiritual solution? Because Krishna is Bhagawan. So he's putting it into Krishna's hands. That's what makes it spiritual. Okay. Oops. So we talked about identity. Okay. So what is the shift that is happening here? In this verse, this 2.7 is the key verse where things shift. That's why I said, fasten your seatbelts, sit back and relax. The plane is about to take off. Till now we were taxiing on the runway. Now we are going to take off into the air. So all the previous identities were material, isn't it? Do you agree? A son, father, student, everything is based on the bodily relationship. And that is called, I'll just throw this out there, that is called Ahamkar. I am this. Ahamkar. The root of Ahamkar is Aham. Who am I? That is why identity is important. Identity is who am I? And really, when somebody has triggered you, don't you say something like, doesn't he know who I am? वो जानता है मैं कौन हूं? Does he even know who he is? You would challenge his identity and you establish your identity. That is Ahamkar. But that is all material, do you see? Now, Srila Prabhupada, who is the commentator on Bhagavad Gita that we use, he is usually the English that we use for Ahamkar is what?
False
Ego.
False ego.
We have some past students, so that's why they are giving them. So he has given a word false ego. Why give a word false ego? Because there is another word called true ego. Okay, so Ahamkar is false ego because there is a true identity. So going back to one of the questions, it's not about giving up identity. It is about identifying our false identity and replacing it with true identity. And how did we say identity can change? One was our own experiences.
experience,
And the second is by knowledge.
knowledge and association.
So by knowledge or some other means, and this is our experiences, like I said, that at least that quest starts with our experiences. Nothing is working. I'm just miserable and I see no way forward. So that is our experiences part of it. And through knowledge, we can, if there is knowledge available, we can discover our true identity. And the Sanskrit for that is svarupa. Svarupa means that is the true rupa versus Ahamkar. which is the false identity, which is the material identity, and the true identity is not also material. Okay? Any identity which is on the material platform is not your true identity. Bhagavad Gita says that the true identity is spiritual. And that is the whole point of the next 20 verses in the Bhagavad Gita, starting from 2.10. So we are again moving forward, 10 to 30. The first thing that Lord Krishna speaks. So please open your books, if you have them, to 2.10. So again, in 2.10, Lord Krishna is or begins to speak, but this is 2.10 is still Sanjaya's words. That Lord Krishna now begins to speak. Tam uvacha Rishikesha prasanniva bharata. So he begins to smile, prasanniva, like a father smiling on a child. Like the child is like miserable, and the father, the prasanniva word means father is fully confident. He's not like, oh, even I don't know what is the solution. He's like smiling. Okay, my son, come. Now, finally, after all your tape recorder has ended, now you have done the right thing, which is to Shishyasteham Shadhimam Twam Prapannam. Then only Krishna starts to teach. So another point is, minor key concept is, never give free advice or unsolicited advice. If the student or the person who is intending to receive is serious about receiving, then you can give. Okay. Anyway, so 2.11 onwards, Lord Krishna starts speaking. Okay. And then in 2.13 is a very, very important verse. We will go to 2.13, where Lord Krishna talks about the soul. Okay. So are you all on 2.13? So we will read this one verse. Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra na muhyati. So do you see the word dehanta in this verse?
Yeah.
What does dehanta mean?
End of body.
Death. Deha anta. Deha means body, and ending of the body is dehanta, death. Tatha dehantara praptir. After attaining death. So there is something after death. Dehantara praptir. We think death is the end, like the movie The End. Then you go home. It's not the end. After death. So we'll go to the first line. In the deha, there is a dehi. Dehino asmin yatha dehe. So in the deha, there is a dehi. Dehi means soul. So deha is the body, and dehi is the resident of the body. So the body is just a house, is a building, or is a covering. Dehi is the real one. Kaumaram Yauvaram Jara. And he is moving in this body from Kaumara, from young age, to Yauvanam, to a youth, or a Kaumara is young boy, youth, and Jara means old person. So we can see that the body itself is changing, isn't it? But who is not changing in this? The soul. Dehi. And Tatha Dehantara Praptir, same thing. Now there is a bigger change in the body. Okay. Complete change. But the Dehi continues. So the translation is, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body itself, and you can see that in this body, the only difference is you don't remember. Do you remember when you were a small child? You don't. You remember you were a small child, right? Somebody may have hit you when you were 5 years old. If you meet that person today, you will remember, yeah, this was now today he may be a nice guy and you may forget it, but you'll remember, yeah, this was the one. I still remember one person I hit. I don't know who that person was. I don't remember their name, but I hit him pretty hard. There was a stone, and I was like 3 or 4 years old, and we were just playing some game, but my stone that I threw apparently, was very accurate, and I didn't intend it, and it really hit him on the head or something, and he started bleeding. And I was like, okay, today I'm done. And I got a real spanking as well. But still, I feel if I were to meet that person, I want to apologize. I don't know who that person is or whatever. But I remember my childhood, at least that incident I remember. Do I remember my past life?
No.
But that Bhagavad Gita now tells us, just because I don't remember, it doesn't mean my past life does not exist. Bhagavad, this is where we have the knowledge. Now, there is a lot of theory about reincarnation, and if you read some, research and all in Stanford and Princeton universities, now they have a department, which is, there are some legitimate professors, tenured professors, who are doing some research into this area. So it's not just some, pseudoscience or, what you call all this conspiracy theories, thank you, and all that, okay? And there are so many documented cases. But anyway, we won't go into that. That is for the detailed lesson. You can look it there. So we are going, just like in this body, our body is changing, but we see I am the same person. I still want to apologize to that person. It's me. I did it. Even though in my body, when I look at my picture, I can't even recognize that's me. But I know it was me. Tatha dehantara praptir. Similarly, at the end of dehant, I'll get another body. What's the big deal about it? Dhiras tatra namohyati. A dhira. Dhira means one who is a realized person, a wise person. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. What's the big deal? Do you get the point? Now, it doesn't mean if your near and dear ones die, you start saying, what's the big deal? There is obviously emotional attachment. We'll come to that as well. But try to get the knowledge part here. The very next verse will talk about something, a new concept, which we will talk about, tolerance. But let's stay there. Are you following? So our real identity is what? Is the soul. Now that also is just scratching the surface. Okay, soul, it's just a 4-letter word we call Atma or Jivatma. Here it is called Dehi. In the 13th chapter, it will actually be called as Jivatma. So what's this all about? It's just a word. Okay. So let me read to you a very powerful, a life-altering conversation. So I want to read it to you. Please, please listen to it carefully. I'm not going to show it on the screen. I could, it's right here, but I have seen in my own experience. Here it is, the Word document, and I could read it and you're seeing it, but attention gets divided. Okay. You will try to see where I am and I'm speaking. So I'm just going to unshare this and I'm just going to read it out to you. So please just hear it as a story. But it is a life-altering conversation between two very great personalities. You all know who is on the right-hand side?
Netaji.
Subhash Chandra Bose, a great freedom fighter for Indian independence from the British. And who is on the left? No.
No.
Prabhupada.
Not Prabhupada, but his guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaja. So he is the guru of Prabhupada, who has written this, the commentary on Bhagavad Gita, which we are studying. Okay. So before I read that, any questions? So yes, Ashutosh Prabhu has a question in the room. And iPhone 13, do you have a question or is that a... So we'll come to your question if you have a question, whoever was iPhone 13. Yes.
So, Prabhu, like suddenly the pace has picked up, right? Like
Yes.
chapters 1 was much slower. Now, like just 2.13 could have been a book in itself. I mean, so many concepts introduced so fast. So what is going on? I mean, is it because the student is so wise?
Exactly.
Can we make like, no, because the concept of soul is itself so deep and he keeps leaping through all those. So,
And this is a fast-paced course, and Bhagavad Gita in itself, like I said probably in the last week, is a summarization of entire Vedic knowledge. So yes, it is pretty fast-paced. Okay, so just that's the best way to understand Bhagavad Gita is through iteration. Don't try to think in one go, I will understand it all. It is a sure shot recipe for failure. Even if you get 20%, it is enough. So just focus in this course on the concepts that I am talking about. Put your effort throughout the week to understand, to think about it, try to get it. Okay. Anything else?
The quick question, Prabhuji. Is Arjuna suffering because he identifies himself as a great grandson or his responsibility as a kshatriya? Is it because of the identity or the responsibility as a kshatriya that he has to fight?
That is the identity. We just said that he is the...
But he's not identifying himself as a kshatriya. That was given to him by birth, right?
So, okay. Now we are going into how you identify as a kshatriya. By birth or by... So it is by your guna. The birth is just a consequence of that. A person is a kshatriya by swabhava. That is the word, swabhava. That is one's innate nature. And because of that, the arrangement of...
still has the more? Oh,
kindly mute
the
yourself.
puris, is it? Okay.
So the arrangement of God, Krishna, Yamaraj, and whoever else, the whole ministry behind, ensures that you get your birth in that family. Okay, in a family of kshatriya, if your swabhav is of a kshatriya. It's not random chance that, okay, you are a kshatriya and you got born in a Vaishya family. Okay.
Quick, basic question. It's the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna, right? Is Sanjaya listening to it or?
Yeah.
Oh,
So the question was, is Sanjay listening to this conversation? Absolutely. And so is Dhritarashtra.
he muted everyone else, but okay, Sanjaya was listening.
Sanjay was listening because he was given special powers to listen and see by Vedavyasa. Okay. So we will, please remember this concept of true identity versus material identity. And it's a very powerful conversation. And let me read this. So please listen just like a story, okay? Shri Subhash Chandra Bose had come to Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur at his temple to requesting him to provide manpower to fight the British rule. So he knew that, so during the meeting, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose said, having taken a vow to free our motherland from foreign rule, I have declared this slogan throughout the country. What was the slogan? Give me your blood and I will promise you freedom. Remember that?
Yeah.
I have recently come to know, Subhash Chandra Bose is saying, I have recently come to know that many young men have taken your shelter. Please entrust some of these men to me so that they may fight for the freedom of this country. So he's basically going there and asking for some manpower because there were some brahmacharis and all who were living in the temple and who were disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj. Okay. In reply to that, the great Vaishnava Acharya, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, asked Subhash Chandra Bose, "Have you read Bhagavad Gita?" Subhash Chandra Bose replied, "Yes, I have." Then Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, "Do you remember this verse? Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajyatyante kalevaram tam tam eva iti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha." We will come across this verse in 8th chapter, by the way. What it is basically saying is that whatever thoughts that you have at the end of your life, that kind of body you get in the next life. So Subhash Chandra Bose replied, "Yes, certainly." He even told the chapter number and the verse number. So Subhash Chandra Bose knew Bhagavad Gita. Then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked, "Then you must definitely believe in reincarnation?" "Of course I do," Netaji confidently answered. Then Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked him, "If incidentally you happen to die today and you are born in England in your next life, will you continue to fight for India's freedom or will you fight to maintain dominance over India? Which one will you fight for?" To this, Subhash Chandra Bose gravely replied, "I understand your point, but we must certainly think about the freedom of our motherland." Then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was he was no ordinary saint and knew Netaji's burning desire and the firm resolve to kick the Britishers out of India, he said something that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose had never heard. So the first response itself was like a shock. This one was an even bigger shocker. He says, "You are concerned merely for the temporary, the worldly freedom and the liberation of a few people who at the moment happen to possess the material designation of being Indian. I, however, am concerned about the liberation of not just only the Indians, not even the whole human race, but of every living entity on this world from the bondage of material entanglements, material suffering. That is the freedom fight I am fighting." Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose candidly acknowledged, "I have never heard anything like this before. Before meeting you, nobody had ever described me such a meaningful explanation of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. But I fear I have come a bit too far in my struggle for freedom to look back." Saying this, and after thus receiving the blessings in the form of a sublime message of Bhagavad Gita from the mouth of that pure devotee of Lord Krishna, Netaji became quiet and left the place as if internally appreciating what he had just heard. But at the same time, he had no choice. His responses showed how committed he was to the mission of setting India free from the foreigners. This is a distinct quality of a kshatriya who understands his dharma of being a warrior and a protector, but at the same time performs his duty with full faith in Lord Krishna. So at the same time is a very important word which we will further uncover in 8th chapter. It's not either or. Again, going back to the question of, should I get rid of my attachments? If that was the answer, the ending of the Bhagavad Gita should have been, I have now told you, my dear Arjun, the whole Bhagavad Gita, you were right, let's go. Let's not fight. Give up your attachment. That was not the answer, we all know that, right? So one thing that you might be thinking is that why could not Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj send some of his men? What was such a great, okay. So that's a deeper discussion. But to summarize, the point is that it is much easier to find people to serve based on bodily identity. Desh Bhakti. I'm not, by the way, saying Desh Bhakti or, what do you call in English? Nationalism or nationalistic patriotism. Patriotism for what? For nation. Is a wrong thing or a bad thing at all. But the point is, these material designations are much easier to motivate people because it creates this feeling of us versus them. And that is also Ahamkar. It is very hard to find people to serve for the spiritual identity. And he had only a few men, so he did not want to just let go of those men. And they were anyway very weak because there was not much to eat, and this was just men. What will they fight? Anyway, so that was the conversation between Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaja and Subhash Chandra Bose. So now what I would like to do is to go to the second point of tolerance. So this brings us to that point. Okay, no big deal if somebody dies. That's not the point. Realizing one's spiritual identity is not easy. Not realizing, okay, you all realize you're reading Bhagavad Gita, but to get it. And also to replace our material identity with the spiritual identity. If you replace it, imagine what happens. Then if somebody says, you're not a good son, you claim to be a good son or a good daughter or a good student, you're not that. If that is not your primary identity, you won't get hurt. Just by chance, like we took that example of a cook, somebody said, I don't identify with it as much. So even if somebody says something, it doesn't hurt us so much as long as you don't attack my most cherished identity. And the most cherished identity that one should have is the spiritual identity. Because that is the real identity. We don't see it that way. Okay. And two things in that journey of seeing ourselves as the spiritual identity. One is for ourselves. People will be people. The outside world will be the outside world. That's not going to change. Bhagavad Gita is all about internal change. They will say something. The material world, outside world will continue to be as it is. Things will happen. As we say, stuff will hit the fan. Okay. What should you do in that case? Should you get triggered? Should you get triggered? You are a seeker, you are a sadhak. You are trying to see yourself as a spiritual identity. And then stuff happens. There comes the next verse, which we will read, 2.14. So please open 2.14, the next one. And that is about tolerance. Matra sparshastu konteya shitoshana sukha dukha daha agama payino nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. So Bharata is the descendant of the Bharat dynasty, which is Arjuna. Titikshasva means to tolerate. Very important word. It will appear many times in Bhagavad Gita. Titikshasva. So as one is on their spiritual journey, disregarding or trying to not pay attention to material problems that occur, trying to rise above those, trying to identify oneself with the spiritual identity. And the spiritual identity, by the way, has spiritual attachments which can never be taken away. That is the beauty. The spiritual attachments are always yours. So again, going back to the question, it's not about giving up attachments. It's about changing the attachments that come from material identity to different set of attachments that come from spiritual identity. And the beauty about, going ahead a little bit, the spiritual attachments only give happiness. There is no possibility of suffering or pain in pursuing those spiritual attachments. In one's pursuit of spiritual attachments, there may be material discomforts. Hey, in material attachments pursuit also there are material discomforts. Who said? Anybody came first in class here? Come on, raise your hands. Was it easy? How many nights, as they say, of oil you had to burn while your friends were playing outside? Any material accomplishment comes with sacrifices, or not only sacrifices, even not even hard work, even more suffering. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. More time than he was outside giving speeches, he was in the jail. Hey, he's trying to do a noble thing, and more than 50% of the time he's in the jail. That's suffering, I would say. I mean, he didn't take it, but you can see from an external standpoint, it is suffering. It's not just, oh, I'm hard work. It's plain suffering. So in your pursuit of material things, and it was a material thing, we just read it, independence and this and land and this piece of land, bodies, I'm Indian, you are British. There is pain and there is suffering. What to speak of spiritual pursuit? It will be, because we are doing it in the material world, there will be pain, there will be suffering. What should you do? Titikshasva. And the first line is Matra sparshastu konteya. Sparsha means sense, sparsha means touch. So all these things that we perceive through our senses, the pains and sufferings you perceive through your senses, isn't it? Mind is also considered a sense organ, by the way, in this discussion. It's not just physical pain, it is mental stress also is included in this. Sparsha. Shita Ushana. Shita Ushana is more winter or cold and heat. They will be there. In summer, you will feel hot. No AC, no nothing. In winter, you will feel cold. Sukha Dukha will all be there. Shita Ushana Sukha Dukha Daha. All this will be there. But one should go beyond this. So, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer. Just treat it in the stride. You know, today you are in jail, tomorrow I'll be out of the jail. After that, again, I will be in the jail. Life will keep going on like this. Today it is summer. What is bound to come? Winter. What is bound to come after that? Summer. So, material world works like this. You should focus your mind on your spiritual quest. Don't give that up. That is the teaching from this verse. Very important. So, two things we understood. Soul is eternal and the body is temporary. That is our real identity. It does not mean that everything will be la 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 land. There will be material discomforts. Keeping that spiritual goal in mind, one should tolerate. Even for material things, the determined people do that. What to speak of the most noble goal, okay? Now, in the few minutes that we have left, please take 3 or 4 minutes and read up to the 30th verse. Just read the translations right now in the class. Should take like 3 or 4 minutes. I will read with you. There are so many details. Please listen. There are so many details about the soul that will be covered in the next several verses, up to 30. The numbers are on the slide. Just read through it. But don't worry, but we will not cover those details in the interest of our fast-paced nature. So there'll be many things about the soul, but the main point that is being said, please listen before you read. The main point that is being said is that the soul is eternal. It cannot be killed, it cannot be cut, it cannot be destroyed. And the soul goes from one body to another to another. In the 22nd verse, Lord Krishna gives a very nice example, like we change clothes. Similarly, the soul changes bodies. It's just as simple as the change of clothes. And another point he mentions in the 25th verse is that the soul is inconceivable. Achintya means it is very, very difficult to figure out by our material means. You cannot come up with a science experiment. You cannot come up with a machine or a meter or an instrument to see the soul, to be able to measure it, to be able to weigh it. All these things are not going to work. All those experiments somebody did, a live person was on a weighing scale, then he died and the weighing scale changed. All that is bogus. The soul has no weight. Okay. So all these points about the soul, which are all finer level details, we will not cover in this course. But the main point is that the soul is eternal, the body is temporary, and we should try to find out that our real identity is the soul. What it means, it's just scratching the surface. The real understanding will emerge as we go along. So just remember this and read, take 4 minutes. I know we are going a little bit beyond 4 minutes and read through number 30. I will take questions. First read. Okay, finish up. Another, maybe take 20 more seconds and finish up. All right. So that concludes our Bhagavad Gita today's discussion. We'll take questions. So a few more minutes. We will start from 31st verse in the next class, and we will go through the entire second chapter. We will complete the second chapter next week. So with that, what are the questions? I see some questions on the chat. But let's see if there are, raise your hands even if you have put your question on the chat so that I know to address those questions. So first we'll take this question in the room.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand what you put forward for the tolerance part. So just to make sure I'm getting it correctly. So are you saying that as you try to change your attachment from the material one to the spiritual one, there will be still suffering and be tolerant to that?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And not only that, don't have to yet. So again, you're a little bit ahead. I'm not saying yet to change your attachment. Just realize that there could be a different set of attachments. We are still in the theory portion. Okay, we are not done yet. We are just getting started.
Right. Yeah, I was trying
So,
to understand the concept of tolerance, but I think
but the concept of tolerance is that when we deprioritize our identity, that is what we are doing here. We are putting our spiritual identity as our true identity. See, we have multiple identities, correct? Our topmost identity, when somebody challenges that or the attachments coming out of that, is what pains us the most, correct? Now we are saying put your spiritual identity as the topmost. Okay, and then this will get deprioritized, but it doesn't mean it will disappear yet. So if somebody challenges that, there will still be suffering. Take the case of Arjuna. What to speak of someone else after hearing the whole Bhagavad Gita, when his son was killed, Abhimanyu. He was very sad. So one can ask, oh, you just heard Bhagavad Gita a few days ago. Hasn't been even like few days, and now you are so sad. It is about the priority, the topmost priority. He could get out of it very quickly. And of course, with the help of Krishna. And there are other reasons about that as well. But when we put the spiritual identity at the topmost, the others get deprioritized. They give us less suffering, but not zero suffering. So whatever suffering, and in that quest also, we can theoretically put it at the top. But really, our material identity is still at the top. It's not easy to just put your spiritual identity at the top. It's no way easy. So we are trying, at least theoretically, put it there. You only can tell how quickly. There are some people who make very quick spiritual progress. There are some who have been coming to Bhagavad Gita classes and have been there for like 10, 15, 20 years, and they're still there. So there's all range of people. So they are trying. Everybody is trying. So you also try. The sooner you can get it, the suffering from the others will begin to reduce. Okay. So that is the point. But till you get there, there will be still tolerance. You cannot say after 6 months I was in Bhagavad Gita class, still I'm feeling sad. Of course, because you have not fully realized, and some of it comes with time. Okay, 9 mothers cannot produce a baby in 1 month. So Bhagavad Gita also is similar. Give it time. It takes its course. And apply it, sincerely apply it. A mother who is pregnant shouldn't drink and shouldn't do all the things. Otherwise, she also, takes care of her process of 9 months. So you nurture your baby, your spiritual growth, your baby being your spiritual growth. Nurture it, a nice, healthy baby will come. Okay. Other questions? So we'll alternate between Zoom and here, okay? Alap Abhay.
We have a question why Bhishma was on the Kaurava side instead of the Pandavas. If he loved Arjuna and loved the Pandavas, and the Pandavas were better than the Kauravas.
Okay, I think I heard your question, but I can read it on the chat as well. So that's a bigger question. Why Bhishma is on the Kaurava's side? That was because of his vow that he had taken to always support who is on the throne. And actually, at the end of his life, when Bhishma is about to die, and this is given in the Mahabharata, which is an extension from what is the discussion in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm just going a little bit quickly. there's a discussion that happens between Lord Krishna and Bhishma. And Bhishma acknowledges his fault, that he should have gone for the higher purpose. He identified as being his one who keeps the vow. That's why his name was Devavrata. Very strong vow he took, that I will not marry when his father, there's a whole history behind it. And he said, plus I will protect whoever is on the throne. I will never marry, so my children won't even exist to take the throne. Plus, I will personally protect whoever is on the throne. It's not like, okay, your children can be on the throne, but I will dethrone them. No, I will put all my might behind protecting. So that there's a whole history behind it. His identity was protector of his vachan. Okay, next question in the room.
Wait, what does it mean by Godhead when referring to Krishna?
I couldn't hear properly. Could you put it on the chat, please?
What does it mean by Godhead when it's referring to Krishna?
Godhead. So why is Krishna called as the personality of Godhead? Because Srila Prabhupada chose that term because we have so many apparent gods. This god, that god. In our Hindu dharma, we have 33 million gods. So we will cover this in a later chapter, but he is the Supreme Lord, the Lord of all. We call them as devatas, or you can call them gods or demigods, but he is the Godhead, the head of all the gods, the Supreme Lord. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
In that extension of that same topic, like if there is a responsibility.
So next time, if you have questions, raise your hands early. I always face this difficulty of, when I'm asking what questions do you have, then there are no hands. Then I keep going because I'm committed to doing 2 hours of class at least. If all the questions come in the end, then this is, we either say no more questions or, we shoot over time. So next time, prepare your questions and raise your hand sooner if you have questions. Yes, so we will still go ahead and keep answering some questions. If you want to leave, please feel free to do that. And please feel free to stay. My commitment is to answer questions quickly, but still answer them and not say we are done. And if you have to leave, you can catch up on the recording. Yes.
Yes. The point is on the responsibility. Like you just gave the conversation between Subhash and the Swamiji, right? Like he was committed to that responsibility, or he has already has built up an army and he has a lot of responsibility.
I have come too far along to look back.
Yes. So in that point, it is very tough, like as how he did, like he could not take up that, advice from Swamiji. So if any such situation comes, so how to deal with that? Is it still we have to?
You are saying that, where is that? That and. Didn't I have it anywhere? Oh, in the conversation it was there that I read. There is an and. Do your duty and have your firm faith on Krishna. There is an and. So it is not a mutually exclusive choice. If I do this, then I must give that up. So being a spiritually realized person does not mean you give up your duty, your day-to-day duty, or whatever your duty may be. One can do both. There are some who do one of those things exclusively. Okay?
Even if it causes suffering to someone, that duty, if in other way.
One's duty shouldn't cause suffering to anyone.
But it is like, you are, say in country, like you are protecting your country, the other opposite person is protecting his country. So you are actually...
No, but there is an aggressor and then another is the victim. That is given by the law of dharma, material dharma. So it should be clearly identified who is the aggressor and who is the oppressed. The Pandavas and the Kauravas had a clear agreement that after 13 years, if we, so do this, whatever, we will come back, we will get back half our kingdom, Indraprastha. So there was a contract which was violated. So it's not like both sides are trying to protect their own. There is one clear aggressor and there is one clear defendant or a victim. Okay. And that is given by the laws of material dharma. Okay. Okay. Do we, Sridhar Rao?
Yes. So my question is very simple. Can you give an example of false ego and a true ego?
Okay. So definitely we can give so many examples about false ego. True ego is a future topic. The true ego, in a very simple sense, I will just say, is that I am a spiritual entity. All these material things I don't care about. This is all temporary anyway. If somebody calls me a rascal, I think I'm a very good employee at my work. Somebody says, what a lousy person you are, you have not done your work or whatever. I won't get affected by that because I know that really who I am is, or, just as somebody maybe, let's say, is taking his work easy. He knows he's a very committed family member. It's okay, let my boss say whatever he says. So that means he's deprioritizing that identity of being an employee. And people may say that and he will tolerate. Yeah, I know I'm not doing well, but I'm a very good husband, very good father, very good family man. If they fire me from this job, I will find another job. Okay. Similarly, knowing that I am a spirit soul, whatever you may tell me, whatever at a material level you tell me, you treat it like that other guy who doesn't get affected by something, by an identity which he has put lower. So you put all your material identities lower and put your true identity. I'm a spirit soul. How can another one attack you if you simply consider yourself as a spirit soul? There is no way to attack you. Because the soul never dies. How can anybody attack you? Just now you read in the Bhagavad Gita, the soul cannot be cut or destroyed by any weapon. What kind of attack can you do on the soul? You can kill my body. You can destroy, damage, defame my body. You cannot do anything to the soul. That is what the whole point of those 20 verses was. One who knows that in reality, who gets it, will never be affected. And that is his true identity. Like, I am the soul. Come, do whatever you want. Come. What can you do? You cannot do anything to my soul.
That's the true ego.
That's the true ego. Come, hit me. What can you do? Okay. And false identity, so many that, I don't know, whatever you may be. You may have identity like, somewhere, in my other neighborhood, one person had a Mercedes and a Honda. And he had a smaller garage. Guess which car he used to keep inside the garage and which one outside? Huh? Mercedes inside? No, Mercedes was outside, Honda was inside. So that the whole neighborhood should know that I have Mercedes. That is Ahamkar. And then one day there was a small scratch on the Mercedes. That's it. Okay, never mind. We're almost. Okay. So that is Ahamkar, false ego. Make sense? There can be thousands of examples, no problem. Okay, Pratyusha.
Hello, sir. Yes, in the 16th verse, what is the meaning of there is no endurance of the changing body? What is endurance of the changing body?
Endurance means permanence.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is no, you can think of it, there is no permanence of the material, and of the eternal, there is no change. It remains permanent. One is no permanence, one is permanent.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, that's all with our questions today. Thank you so much for attending. We'll see you again next Sunday. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.